How about you puff me from the back and use my balls as a dessert, bub?
It's the Catican.
No. We're not doing that today. It was gluten free. Yeah, no buns.
Hey, it's me, your buddy Ben.
Today's episode is brought to you by the premier app for discreetly meeting local skaters in your area, Grindr.
Colin Chandler, 1 for 1 on long tooth.
Some would say the heir to the Kawhi Leonard throne, Colin Chandler.
You calling him a White Claw?
What a great name.
Are you a skateboarder looking to connect with other skaters nearby? Then check out Grindr, the app that helps you discreetly meet fellow skaters. Whether you're searching for a truck stop, rest stop, or a back alley to perfect your tricks, Grindr helps you find the perfect spot to meet up with like-minded skaters.
Love to blow that 10 into 15 into 20 and really feel comfortable watching it.
Like the what?
What?
You'd like the what?
Blow that 10-point lead into a 15 lead or a 20-point lead. But the...
Ray, what do you think? Are you blowing 10s or?
If I'm lucky, yeah.
Single skaters, jacked skaters, down for whatever skaters, you name it. And let me tell you, this app is legit. Just ask my girlfriend. Now she's totally on board and has agreed not to ask me about it anymore. I'm connecting with skaters all over the place. So pull out your skateboard, whether it's in your garage, attic, or buried deeply in your closet. Download Grindr today. Start connecting with your local skate community, because sometimes the best rides are the ones you share.
And honestly, like I thought we went through the back door way too many times. Like I feel like that's on that type of offense.
Can you go to the back door too much?
You certainly can, depending on a variety of circumstances. Actually,
Experience mostly. Yeah.
Preparation. Before.
Yeah, the preparation ritual to go to the back door is significant.
48-hour notice is what I've. Is what
yeah, that's what I tell my wife.
The Troy game, loved it. Huge for me. My wife's boyfriend's name is Troy, so when he was picking her up to take her out on Friday night, she'll be back in the morning. I was just like, "You guys are going down tonight," and he's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Circus playing Troy." He was like, "I went to Brown." I was like, "I didn't know you went to an HBCU."
Another one.
It's the Catican. We got Reese's, and we've got more pieces on the team. Fellas, how are we feeling? Oh, I'm sorry. How rude of me. We're lucky enough to be joined by Tristan Ferris of Sea of Blue, Kentucky Insider. Thank you for joining
us. Hey guys, how are you?
Fellas, how are we feeling? Goodness, Tristan. I don't know if you're familiar with the show, because
I've watched it a few times. The intro is got to be one of the best podcast intros that I've been a part, that I've seen. So
I appreciate it, because if you weren't familiar with the show and you came in and saw that, one might have mistaken us for a legit show if they hadn't seen that intro. But
the Grindr ad read is an ad read.
Thank you.
It's a friendly reminder. We're still looking for people to have us do real ad reads. If you want to pay us to read about your product, we're happy to do so.
Guys, what's new? Braden, Ben?
Not a lot. Signed some big kid out of Miami, right? The Reece Potter kid. Looking like a nice little addition at the end there. I mean, not a whole lot of news though, right? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, we've got that. We've got some scheduling news to get to later. We've got some news maybe about the house settlement and how that's shaken out, and some news about how our cats from this year are doing in their quest to become pros.
The Reece Potter thing kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like, how did that come to fruition?
Kind of came like, I heard his name on Sunday. I reached out to him on Sunday. He's like, it's official. And then Monday, it was like, okay.
Simple as that. Yeah. You can tell where you wanted to be, I guess.
I was just saying, it's pretty cool getting to talk to him. He's he reminds me of the Ainsley mold. He really, really wants to be here. So that's probably been the coolest part, getting to talk to him. Just coming from Miami, never thought he'd be at Kentucky, and he's now playing somewhere where he grew up less than 10 miles from as a kid. So pretty cool.
You just I just linked your Q&A with him in the chat as well. Check that out if you haven't. Tristan did a great interview with him. And like you said, he sounds like he's just super excited to be here, as you'd expect from a Lexington kid who grew up cheering for the Cats.
And you gotta love having a guy like that on the team. I think Ansley kind of felt like you could tell how much it meant to him to be on the team like that. So I'm really excited to have guys like that because the stuff we don't see every day, like in practice and all that. Like to have guys where it still means something more than like a paycheck. Pretty cool to see. I was really happy with that addition, even if he's not going to be a great like an impact player right away or at any point. I think it'd be a really good addition. I was excited about it.
It helps too when the guys that want to be here are a mold, the kind of player that's in high demand and really you can't get enough 7-footers that can shoot. He's not a crazy volume guy. I think he's about 2-3 points attempted per game. But that's not nothing when you're a 7-footer who's only playing half the game anyway.
So if you can have a 7'2" guy as the 13th spot on the bench, I'm taking that 7 days of the week.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, in the SEC too, with the way they call fouls on big men in particular. I mean, you can never have too much depth or too much size.
He's definitely got to get in the weight room, though. He's far stretched from Amari Lee.
He can do that. We've got a good strength and conditioning staff.
Let's work on the injuries this year. Knock on wood. Let's get one season where we can just not stress about that. But yeah, Reece definitely has the length, just not the girth this year.
Speaking of last year and the injuries and stuff, I'm curious to get your opinion, Tristan, on how you'd kind of summarize Pope's year one, what you thought of how everything kind of came together. It was kind of a whirlwind. That's how we all met each other here on the show. So I'm just curious how you thought year one went for Pope and kind of what you expect going forward.
Year one, my expectation. I know when he was hired, I don't know anybody that was happy. Okay, Braden, I'll give you your props if you're happy. Prophecy. I wrote an article and he was like the 8th name on the list. I was like, surely Kentucky won't get down here. But starting that Sunday, I don't think there's not really anything that you complain about outside of the injuries, which is outside of his control. My expectation in year one, like dating back to last summer, was like win an SEC tournament game, win an NCAA tournament game. 2 things that Kentucky hadn't done in a while. He won the SEC tournament game. I can't really blame him for losing to Alabama the way he did, shorthanded without a couple of players down the stretch. But I don't know how you can complain about going to the Sweet 16. Now the Tennessee loss was brutal, especially for me. I sat about 15 feet away from the Tennessee bench and had to listen to Peyton Manning cheer the entire game.
Oh man,
Zakai Ziegler whine the entire game, and he is shorter in real life than he is on television.
That's amazing.
It is so funny.
They say the camera adds 3 inches.
Probably. I'd say so. He my favorite part was he looked up. He got mad at Brandon Garrison and he looked up at him, and I was like, "You're gonna need a step stool if you're trying to get in this guy's face to fight or something." But definitely a unique strategy, scare tactic there.
Yeah, that's sort of how I felt as far as my preseason expectations as well. I wanted, the big dig on Pope when he got hired was no tournament wins. So I at bare minimum wanted him to have a tournament win, and he got that. The regular season was much more of a success than I thought. Maybe lost a couple I didn't think we'd lose, but also won a bunch that I didn't think we'd win. And like many people, I had no idea going into the season the SEC was going to be as tough as it was. So to come out, especially with the injury situation as well as we did there, just awesome. And really looking forward to how we can turn that into more years of success.
Tristan, I got a hot take, and I want to get your thoughts on it. I think the SEC might go back to kind of stinking again next season.
I don't think you're going to be wrong. There's a lot of change. Unfortunately, Tennessee looks like they're going to be good. Kentucky's going to be good, but Alabama's losing a lot. Auburn's losing a lot. Florida, it's kind of what are they going to make of their backcourt, because they got those 3 big guys they've spent millions on, and you can't blame them. But you got to put together a whole roster. So Curious what Arkansas is going to be, just because you just never know with the Calipari team the last few years. Are the freshmen going to pan out? Are the transfers going to pan out? It'll be interesting, but definitely it won't be close to what it was this year, which for a Kentucky fan, I prefer that. It's nice to have the SEC good every once in a while, but I kind of want to see Kentucky kind of dominate the SEC, if not dominate, finish in the top 2 or 3, something that they haven't done in a few years, which, well, I take that back. They did do it, I think, when they finished a 2 seed and ended up losing to St. Peter's. So we won't talk about that.
All right, everybody. Well, put in your questions for us or for Tristan. It's not often that we have somebody who actually has clout and some insight into the program.
And
Usually
our first
just shooting from
real
the hip.
guest.
I'm on the low clout.
Hey, this is big time for us, man. Don't discount yourself here. Now, we really appreciate you coming with us. Question I have is what the roster constructed so far. I think it's a top 3, if not top 4 at worst roster in the country right now. We got some pushback on that last episode. I don't want to hear about Michigan. If anyone says that, I'm just going to mute you. But I'd like to see, like, where do you think the roster as it sits right now kind of stacks up to the rest of the country? Because I think it's a top 5 roster.
I think if you look at it just on paper, it's a top 5 roster. You got like pretty much you got defenders, you got playmakers, you got athleticism, you got size. The only thing which multiple folks have said at this point is kind of somewhat worrisome is you just don't have like the proven shooters that you had coming into this year. You don't have the Kobe Brea that, but to be fair, it's pretty hard to find a career 45% 3-point shooter. That's 6'7". So he was kind of a kind of a unicorn there. But I think, if Jaden Quaytons can live up to the expectations and the potential that people have from him coming off an injury, he's top 5, top 10 pick material. If Jalen Lowe can get back to being somewhat efficient that he was his freshman year, he kind of had to carry a lot of the load last year. And if Denzel Aberdeen can take like a Lamont Butler type jump, coming off the bench, I'm not trying to compare those 2 players, but just kind of, if you look at Lamont's kind of stats and kind of role, it just wasn't the playmaker that he was at Kentucky compared to San Diego State. I think you could see something similar with Aberdeen. But yeah, I think the shooting's probably my only question mark, but at the same time, none of those guys are bad shooters. So you would think bringing all that versatility and talent, it makes it easier, better looks, and especially coming in a Pope's offense, who's got one of the best offenses in the country, that's got to bode well for him too.
We had looking last year at the Evan Mia's preseason predictions for how each of these guys was going to pan out versus the postseason. Almost everybody across the board improved, beat his expectations. And I think to some extent that's, Pope getting these guys, to see his vision, playing in his system. And I think he's really good at handpicking the pieces for that. I think this year maybe the talent's a little higher. So I'm curious to see if we exceed expectations to the same extent, or if it's just because that talent ceiling is higher, we're better projected, I guess. But man, if people improve in the same way they did last year, look out.
And that was a big selling point for like the transfers. Like I know Reece Potter talked about it. Some of the other guys I talked to was like every player that joined the team last year got better. And if you have that type of track record on only one season, that's pretty appealing to most players.
I thought the same thing with guys like Lamont and Amari that were like 3-time all-conference players and or defensive players of the year to then grow as much as they did, whether it be on the offensive side or whatever, like under Pope. That was the biggest thing I thought was the proof of what he's going to do is those are guys that were like well established. So it had to have been a point of, to recruit to, because even guys that had careers basically made already like got better at Kentucky. So that was a huge thing for me.
I was such an Amari defender through the first 2 months of the season. I got so tired of people like, this is the worst rebounder I've ever seen. He hates physicality. I'm like, you just look at the analytics. Like I know what the numbers and the look may look like, but it'll get better, and it did. So,
well, I think
curious to see what player does that this season.
I think too, Amari ended up with the 5th highest defensive rebounding rate in the country. I mean, people said all season long, like, man, he just can't catch anything, and it's like you just aren't looking.
Yeah, when they were saying that, he was top 5.
Yeah, you're right. Like, imagine if he caught the ones that bounced off his hands, he'd have even more. I think that goes to show he was just in such good position all the time that that people only saw those misses and assumed he should have been making them.
Him being left off all SEC team got to be one of the biggest snubs. Like, not just as a Kentucky fan or anything. That's got to be one of the biggest SEC snubs in like quite a few years. I mean, the numbers he was putting up in SEC play, analytically and average, what he meant to the team down the stretch when you had very depleted roster, amazed me that he didn't make it.
Do you think any part of that was because of how good the SEC was, and maybe it got lost in the wash, finishing where they finished like 7th or whatever it was? Like, that's the only explanation I could think of for it, because he had a slow start. But yeah, otherwise it made no sense to me at all that he didn't get the honors there with the conference.
It's gonna be the only rationale, but it's a very poor rationale.
For sure.
If you're a coach voting, it's very poor rationale.
Agreed.
I think the person who slides into the Amari role of the fan base is going to be super unfair to them. I think Jalen Lowe is primed for that because people already don't seem pretty high on him right now. He's someone who I have high hopes on, that we do see the progression that we saw from last year's team. Of, you know, he gets into the system and then things start clicking for him. But he seems to be pretty overlooked right now in terms of who we're bringing in. That, and of course, Brandon Garrison is going to get beat up on. Because
I'm ready for BG time. BG time.
So is BG.
Nobody's ready for it more than BG.
Sir,
I don't know who it was. Some trainer running a camp shared some videos of BG earlier, and he looked great. He was defending full court. He had a 3. I've had fun watching some of these guys work out this summer.
One should aspire to have the confidence not only that the staff has in Brandon Garrison, but Brandon Garrison has in Brandon Garrison.
Amen.
Because when he shoots a 27-footer, he believes it's a switch every time.
I'm stoked to have him back, though. I got a lot of grief for that, but I'm glad he's coming back.
Especially if you look at the big market, like if you're trying to find, like, there was no Amari Williams this year. Yaxel was the best player, and he's probably not coming back to college.
Right.
And so if you're trying to find the closest thing to Amari, you got Brandon Garrison, who was analytically not as close as you would like, but closer than most, and he was mentored by Amari. And this staff wholeheartedly believes him.
Now, Braden, fun fact, Tristan, Braden actually does not like Brandon Garrison. He said,
Lord.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I believe you said he's a terrible basketball player and a worse person.
I didn't say any of those things. I said, you said he's played really well with the starters. And I said, well, if he's your starter, he's not going to start next year. So how is that going to change things? That's all I said. I said he didn't play. You could be a box score merchant and yeah, we watched this 3-point, bro. Like, you know what? Oh, God, you know what? Never mind. Move on. I'm not even. He's not a terrible person. Like that he's back. I am. I'm excited he's back. I just didn't think he was going to. I thought he'd have offers where he'd get more of a role, bigger playing time. I think JQ's going to be back sooner. I've said what I said about BG. I'm glad he's back. Welcome back, big dog.
I think the front court, I see it like Brandon Garrison may start. I see it being like much more of a balanced mix just because Pope kind of showed that last year and he's got more front court options. And you got kind of like, you got Yelovich, you got JQ when he gets healthy, you got Brandon Garrison. And if one of them gets in foul trouble, you may be able to slide in Diabate, or if it comes to worse, slide in the 7'2" Reece Potter we just got, just to give you some rim protection.
Where do you think BG needs to improve the most? Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and Malachi there is kind of a question mark too,
Good.
but a positive one. I thought. I don't think his game translates super well to like the all-star high school basketball circuit where you've got Darius Acuff not passing the ball at all, and here's Malachi, hand up, give it to me, and that's just not how those games are played. But every time he got an opportunity, I thought he looked great. He was efficient. He hit the only 3 he took. It was maybe pretty ugly, but it went in. I'm not gonna count on his shooting. It's not any
uglier than I'll take a shot. So.
Yeah, true. And so I just can't believe we have 6 bigs at this point. I sort of like Braden thought, if we bring in another starter level guy, there's no way BG is going to want to split that role. that he had last year. And it's a huge testament, I think, to the staff, not only to how much they believe in BG, but how much BG believes in them. He went on and talked about this 2-year plan, and I love that they do that they have expectations set with these guys. As far as we know, they keep the promises they make, and I think the retention we had really, that's huge, especially when you have a complicated system like this. Last year, we only had Robinson as the only translator, the only person who'd been in this system and was able to help everyone else figure it out. Now we have a bunch.
And that's my favorite part about the way this team is being built, because there's only 2 seniors. As long as Ortega comes back, which fully expect he does, you only have 2 seniors on the roster. So the hope is, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to after the season, is how all these guys are played. If they're happy with their roles, if they're happy with Pope and the staff, how many of them stay? Because Brandon Garrison, as an example, if things don't work out in year 2, you can't blame him if he goes somewhere else. And that's completely up to him. But then again, there's another guy that's been in your system 2 years, and you're going to have to go find somebody that hasn't been in your system. So I'm kind of curious to see how, in terms of returnees and stuff, you only had 5, you brought back 4, a pretty good start. How does it go when you have 7, 8, 9? Can you bring back that many players? And how do you bring that back many players and mix it in with high school recruiting?
I think the high school recruiting calendar is going to be pretty interesting. I mean, if you think about when these kids tend to be doing making their decisions versus when we'll actually have some clarity as to who's going to be on the roster, given portal window, given draft window, and all that. Some of these kids that are really going to need to be patient if they want to be here, making their decisions later. But also, I think we're skewing towards later decisions anyway. Look at Darius Adams or Caden Lewis or Nate Ament. These guys are waiting to see how the rosters shake out anyway before they're making their decisions. And as the portal gets to be more prevalent, I think we see more of that. So maybe that's not so much of an issue, but it'll be interesting to see how they manage this.
So I think it's a smarter approach too, because you're a Caden Lewis or Nate Ament, you're one of the few available options, and then let's say you have Villanova or Duke that's got a little bit of money that has to spend, you're probably going to get more money at that point than you were if you signed back in November, and it doesn't hurt a player to commit and then decommit anymore. And you've seen a lot more of it in college basketball the last 2 or 3 years than it's not anything like college football, but you've seen it a lot more than you used to. If a guy committed, as long as he didn't pull a Shaden Sharp, he was playing for your team. So.
All right, let's move on to the chat, huh? We got some questions in here. Sassafras, by the way, thank you for the kind donation at the beginning of the show. She said, "Who's the most underrated player on the upcoming team?" What do you guys think? I already called Low, so I'm sticking with that one.
I think Low too, honestly, just for the sheer fact that he played on a really bad Pitt team. I think box score, you can look at box score you want to. I think watching him, he does impact winning in ways that you won't see in a stat sheet on a bad Pitt team. I think you're absolutely correct on that. Not to steal your take, but yeah, that's who I would say for sure.
I'll say Diabate. I think he just does so many things at a high level, things that impact winning. And I think he very much is a piece we were missing last year. I mean, constantly people complained about effort. And I don't think effort was really our issue. I think it was just a particular kind of physical effort we're used to seeing that we didn't see out of last year's team. And I think Diabate brings that. I think he's going to be on the floor diving for rebounds. I think Nate Oates calls them the blue collar points and gives his hard hat award at the end of games. And I think Diabate did really, really well in those 2 categories. I think he works his ass off, and that's going to really be huge for this team.
He's also a role we didn't have last year of just a pure ass kicker. And frankly, we didn't have that.
So. Well, Brandon tried to be, but yeah.
You always need a little boogie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Diabate is going to be a fan favorite for that reason. Like, Kentucky fans love the guys that do the dirty work, and he's probably the guy that does the dirty work as good as probably anybody since Oscar. I think Cam Williams is a popular underrated pick just because of shooting ability. He's probably on paper the best shooter on the roster. But I'm going to go with Yelovich. It's kind of, you just don't know what you're getting with the European prospects sometimes. it's kind of sometimes the games translates different. But I just think if things go well, he seems to have a better maturity about himself from what has been said about him than Big Z did. That was kind of Big Z's issue with his lack of maturity, which you loved him and hated him for because of his personality. But I think if he comes with the right approach, the way he's been producing in Croatia, and he comes with the right approach, and he plays in Pope's system, who's dealt with many international players, so that's nothing new to him. But also an offense that fits him really, really well. I think he could be one player that can contribute more than people are expecting.
Totally agree. As we go to the chat some more, if everybody could please like and subscribe to the stream. So off season is going really well for us, and we greatly appreciate it. We're now big enough where we can get friends of the pod like Tristan to join, and we are very appreciative of this. Eddie asks, did Tristan ask Reece if there's a plan for him at UK more ambitious than being a 7-foot victory cigar, aka red shirt him, put on 20 pounds, figure into the rotation?
It's a big cigar.
I like the Aaron Torres picture. That was a little different. So Reece has no plans to redshirt from as of now. I do think he expects not to be a starter or anything. I don't think he'll have much of a role this year at all. And if he doesn't feel like he'll have much of a role, it kind of depends how things play out in the summer. If he sees like it's better if I redshirt, because he's going to love being in Kentucky as long as he can. That's the vibe Potter gives off. He wants to finish his career here, whether it's 2 years, 3 years. That's why he came back to Kentucky and took a pay cut, as has been reported earlier. But I do think that he could play a role somewhere down the line. You kind of the 8th, 9th man on the bench, kind of like Trent Noah last year. If somebody gets hurt, you need somebody to provide some shooting, provide some rebounding, provide some rim protection. That's kind of the role he's going to play. He's never going to be a guy that's set in the rotation, I don't think. But Pope does really well with big men that can pass and shoot, and he can do both. It's just kind of, can he impact? Can he grow a little bit more in terms of his strength? And can he just stay healthy? He's had some injury issues with his elbow and stuff. Nothing, and he was out for a few games last season. So he trusts in their development. He wants to be here. It's a pretty cool story. But I don't think if you're expecting like a top 7 rotation player, I don't see that.
Totally agree. Alexis says, watching Lance with Locked On Kentucky, he made valid points about 3-point attempts and more possessions being less variable than depending on great shooters perform every night. Solid point by Lance there. I mean, it seems that we were, what's the old phrase, Braden? We were a mile long but an inch deep last year in terms of shooting, and this year it looks to be a bit more balanced with the shooting sort of across the team.
Feels like this team's gonna be able to win games when they don't shoot as well. The last year's team won a lot of games too, but I mean, I think that it's not going to be as heavily relied upon. You know what I mean? I think that'll be this. I mean, it's 9 or bust for me with this team, but I won't go that far.
I'm curious to see where some of the shooting volume comes from. Who ends up taking the most shots? Like, yeah, Cam Williams, I think probably is the highest volume and highest percentage guy, but Diabate shot also a great percentage on really, really few shots, like 0.7 per game or something. And as a whole, I think that's maybe one of our weaknesses. I don't at all have any qualm. I mean, if you give me everybody at 35% ish, maybe a little higher on a couple guys,
you'll win a
that's
title.
Florida. That's Florida from last year, right?
Yeah.
But Florida also had Walter Clayton, who took 300 shots, which is like Wade Taylor volume. And so you do need, if you've got the guys that can make the shots, even if they're just a little bit above average, you still need to have the volume for that to be a big impact. And I'm really eager to see where that comes from on this team.
Yeah, for sure. I think going back to, it's like everybody's not an elite shooter, but everybody's not a bad shooter. So there's going to be, I think the volume is going to be more spread out than it was last year, where you had Jackson Robinson, Kobe Bryant taking most threes. But it just kind of comes down to like trying to figure out how to word this. Who is going to set themselves away? I think summer's going to be big for a lot of these players. Like Otego away, he's coming back, and he needs to prove himself as a 3-point shooter. I don't know if you kind of you don't really want to change his shot and then end up like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. but you try to make it more efficient as possible. So could we see more 3-point attempts from him? Obviously, Jalen Lowe was a great 3-point shooter as a freshman. Can he get back to that and playing in a more efficient offense because he had to ask to do a lot? And Brandon Garrison, who Mark Pope believes can be a 4 to 5 3-point attempt player, make that jump. I might be in the minority here. I hope Kentucky never shoots 35 threes per game. I do not like Alabama's offense and the effect that they're so reliant on 3-pointers. I think it's so hard to win a title that way. It's very hard to have 6 straight games, especially in a tournament style setting, where the balls may not be inflated properly or the same every game, which Stephen Peak, my guy at KSR, has done plenty of studies on that. But I think somewhere in that 25 to 30 would be good for this team, just because you have players that can get to the basket. You have athleticism that you lacked last year. You don't have to solely focus on getting shots within the system. You have players that can go get you a bucket.
All right, more along these lines. I did see other good questions. I'll come back to y'all though. But Angus says, Tristan, do you have an opinion on whether we'll land another bench piece for point guard or shooting guard, and thoughts on Hawthorne?
I was told a few weeks ago they would get a bench big and a bench guard. So I still think the guard option is. I mean, if you're just looking in terms of depth, you lost Travis Perry, Caden Lewis decommitted. You're not in desperate need of a guard, but it would be nice to have one if you could find somebody that was okay with the money and the role of playing pretty deep down on the bench. So I think that's a possibility. And with this staff, international players could be an option. I don't think that anybody's kind of set themselves apart, but this staff also works in complete quiet. So you never know. Hawthorne, I think I was told a few weeks ago that Virginia Tech led. Obviously, somebody reported that they're out. So that was my extent to the knowledge there. I just don't think he can get the role at Kentucky that he can get at Duke or even Michigan, just because Hawthorne's probably going to play a 3 or 4 spot. If he plays the 2, I think he's kind of playing out of position at that point. And I think Kentucky's just kind of got their plan set for 3 or 4. If he does come here, it's going to be more or less riding the bench. And then if he wants to transfer somewhere, he's not really raising his stock by not playing. So I just don't think, in terms of if he really wants to be here, Kentucky will take him. Mark Pope would certainly be happy. I just don't think it makes much sense.
I'm sorry, I'm in shock right now.
Why?
Big shout out.
Wow. All right.
Big shout out to Daniel. Oh my gosh. Love the show, guys. What are your thoughts? First, okay, hold on. Thank you so much. We do not deserve that. But
and thank you for the one that came in after last episode as well.
Yes,
truly appreciate that. Love the show, guys. What are your thoughts about Jasper having a role like Todd Pettiford did with Auburn this year? It seems like that'd be a great fit for him.
Yeah, it's incredible actually, and this is one thing I love about our roster is we've talked about who's going to be the guy, and we've talked about who's going to be the underrated guy, and we still have like 4 people whose names we haven't said yet. And I think every one of us is super excited for Colin Chandler and for Jasper. Yes. You look and that's how deep we are. You've got all these guys, and it's like I almost want the depth chart pulled up to make sure I hit on all of them. I think Jasper is going to be pretty good. I know people are somehow ready to go total 180 from the Cal years, and they don't want to rely on freshmen, and they don't want to get their hopes up too high. But I watched a ton of OTE games this year, and there are questions as to how that translates. But there's questions on how like anyone who isn't playing elite prep basketball will translate. And I thought Jasper looked great in all of those. I also thought he looked pretty good in the Jordan Brand game. I think that if he shoots the way he has been shooting, it's like a 38% 3-point shooter on high volume. He handles the ball well, maybe a little thin, but a lot of these guys are, and that hasn't been a problem for most of them. So I'm so excited for Jasper. I think he has huge potential.
I think my biggest thing was Jasper. I think he's got like a Caleb Love bone in him somewhat. So I think it's just, can Pope kind of help he's never really dealt with elite freshmen if you look through his career. So Jasper, I mean, I know he's kind of 4-star, right on the cusp of that 5-star, but like you said, he's in the Jordan Brand game. How does he kind of manage that type of freshman? His offensive system can be a little complex for some. I do think Jasper is a smart player, but can he play within those restraints somewhat and be as efficient that people are hoping he can be? That's going to be my biggest thing. You don't pay as much money as you pay Jasper if he's not going to play this year. So he's going to have some type of role. It's just kind of interesting what it'll be because you got Denzel Aberdeen, you got Jasper there, and you got Jalen Lowe. So is he going to kind of play more of a combo guard, which I see Jasper playing because that was what he was more comfortable with in high school, or is he going to play more of a playmaker?
Curious what your expectations are for Colin Chandler this next year and Trent Noah, two of the guys coming back. I thought Perry would be part of that group too, but out of those two, kind of what do you expect their roles to be? I'm really high on Colin, Utah kid, best high school recruit at Utah in like the last decade. So kind of hitch my wagon to that kid. I'm glad he's back. I thought he might leave, but I'm glad. And I'd want to know what you think he's going to, carve out for himself this year as far as a role goes.
Colin, selfishly, is like my favorite player on the team. Just because he talks so intelligently, he listens to us. Like just from a media perspective, he's awesome. He gives us great answers. But he's just a really good kid with a good head on his shoulders. Last season, you imagine taking off something that you're really good at for 2 years. You're given 2 or 3 months to ramp up, and you're going into the biggest stage of whatever that profession may be. And so that's what Colin Chandler did. And he talked about like he didn't know if he was going to be here. He didn't know if he was worth this shot. He talked about like finding himself. So he was pretty like in the tank probably until late January. And obviously the injuries kind of opened up a spot for him, and he took advantage. Otega Owe was a big part helping him find his confidence, which was pretty cool to see how that relationship get closer. But Colin with what he did at the end of the season, he went from being one of the better defenders on the team to finding confidence to do some stuff on offense. And then Tennessee game, he shoots a step back 30-footer. Then the first half, which was probably the only bright spot of that game. So you give him one full off season where he can actually train and get back to. He's got a year under his belt. He believes in Pope. They have a great relationship. So you give him 1 year or one off season to train. I think there's going to be a big jump there. It's just all these players are expected to be good. You got so much depth. It's just going to be interesting where everybody kind of falls into place. I do think Colin will probably be the player. I think even in practice last season, and obviously in the blue-white game, he was kind of the impressive that a lot of people seen. So I think he might be the same player again, might be the talk of practice. So that would be pretty cool to see. But Colin, I'm really high on. As far as Trent, I don't see him have. I think the way I looked at Travis Perry and Trent Noah's year is they were kind of flip-flopped what they were going to be as freshmen compared to sophomore. Obviously injuries played into that, but they probably played a sophomore role in their freshman year. And in their freshman year, they would have likely played in the sophomore just because of how deep the roster is. Obviously Trent coming back, he's in it for the long haul, I believe. I don't. If you're going to transfer, you probably transfer the freshman where you contributed more than what you thought you were going to be. So sophomore Trent, I think especially hopefully he comes in the Tennessee games, makes another 27-footer and just lights it up in a few of the games. But I think he's kind of just a spot guy to give you some energy. He's got a knack for a ball. So, if you really need a rebounding roster, put him in at the 3. He may not be the best defender in that spot compared to what the options, but he can shoot and he can get you your rebounds. I think the biggest thing is him just getting more experience under his belt. And I think junior Trent Noah is where you can foresee him really get into the rotation.
Talking about Colin Chandler in the blue-white game, I thought in many ways sort of how his season went. The dip was a little bigger, but reflected a lot how Kentucky's season went in that, you had your expectations set somewhere. And I think everyone coming into the season would have been fine if it took Colin some time to get his feet under him. And then he looked as good as he did in the blue-white game, just like Kentucky looked great in that Duke game right away. And then people are saying, well, why are you losing some of these other games? And it's like, well, you would have, at the beginning of the season, written that off anyway. but your expectations got changed with that really early performance. And so I was really happy to see Colin get his feet under him. I think he was 50% 3-point shooter on decent volume the last 8 games of the season, which is like not really that small of a sample size. That's
Missouri
a third
game,
of the season almost.
That Missouri game had me going crazy. You're not supposed to cheer as media, but just to see, like, I mean, when I'm not gonna say I'm close to any of the players, but when you like hear people talk about like, I didn't think I should be here, or I didn't know, like I miss home, and then you see them like have a breakout game like that, it's pretty cool to see. And I think as Kentucky fans, just kind of touching on the freshman topic, we're kind of spoiled because we've been used to all these 5 stars. Then you bring in Travis Perry and Trent, and you're like, why are they not playing? Why are they not Reece Shepherd? And I think most of the fan base gets it, but at the same time, you kind of have to. It's a different type of freshman that they're getting, and they're playing different roles than what Reed, Rob, DJ, those guys played. So, kind of have to adjust based on how folks gonna look at the high school recruiting.
All right, moving on. Friend of the show, Calcada, says, who do you see becoming the guy on this team? I mean, that feels pretty straightforward. Like, it definitely feels like it's going to be Otega's team now.
GQ.
If it's anybody other than Otega, just in terms of, there may be players that have better numbers, but in terms of leadership and star power, I mean, Otega, as long as he comes back, which I fully expect he does, he will be a preseason All-American. Preseason LSE, so he'll have all the momentum behind him, and he's done really well in the workouts that he's been a part of this summer. So I think he's really appreciative to be at Kentucky. He's not any stranger to kind of the process of going through the draft and stuff like that. So I think coming from his brother who's in the NFL, so I think another offseason of getting primed physically will be good for him. But I don't see anybody coming close to the role that Otega will have, just in terms of what Pope and the staff expect out of him.
What's Otega's just vibe like? Is do you see him sliding into a leadership role on the team? Is that something he already kind of provided last year?
I don't think probably more so towards the end of last year. He, like I said, he took Colin under his wing, but I don't think he wanted, like, Lamont was the clear leader of the team. Amari was very, very quiet. Jackson pick and shows those moments very similar to Pope. He was pretty quiet, but I mean, you kind of see it in the Seattle Gonzaga, like he was cussing them at halftime, like, what the F are we doing? So Lamont was a clear leader, Jackson. Those guys all leaving, it kind of leaves Otega the default, and I don't think that he's any stranger to that. So just to seeing what he kind of took some players under his role, like Colin, I think he'll be really good in that spot. I don't think he's going to be the guy cussing at his teammates or anything like that. It's going to be more like the Jackson Robinson type. He's very quiet. He's going to pick and choose his moments. But I think it's going to be him. And then obviously Brandon Garrison, you would hope he'll take that jump. It's just the maturity. I think that's always going to be the biggest question with him. I think he takes another jump. He's a dad. He can't be like fighting people on the court. So
I wonder if being one of the older guys, one of the returnees that maybe some of the newer people look up to or have questions about the system, kind of helps him. You know, if you're in a leadership role, kind of just given the knowledge you have as background, maybe that helps some of the other stuff settle in.
Yeah.
And you can't be getting in fights on the court, but boy, is it fun sometimes.
You got to get some fights on the court a little bit. There's not too many.
My favorite BG moment is, I know everybody will talk about the Oklahoma games, but if you go back at Duke, he does the Billy wiggle with like less than 5 seconds left in that game, and that will be burned in my mind forever, because Alvin Brooks was like, "You're going to get a technical, get off the floor and quit doing the Billy wiggle." It was the funniest. That's one of my favorite moments from last year, especially BG moments. But.
Love BG. Not Braden though.
I like BG. Speaking of that, though, I'm curious, Tristan, what's your feel on when JQ is going to play? Like when he'll first suit up, like because the ACL is not what it used to be. It can be a lot quicker. I think he'll play early. I think he'll play. I mean, I don't want, people are going to roast me for it, but I think he plays way earlier than anyone else is talking about, because I think he's going to be fine. He's like 17, going to heal quickly, but I'd like to know what you think about it.
I just like to be more cautious. I'm optimistic about his recovery, just because he's optimistic. His father's optimistic. Everybody he's talked to is optimistic. But being cleared to play and being like having the confidence to do what you used to do are two different things. And as far as I know, this is JQ's biggest, his only major injury in his career. He's still young and he really relies on that explosiveness. And I don't see there being any issues, but it's just when you're kind of out of basketball play for 5-6 months, at least at full effort, it kind of takes a mental effect. So I think that's going to be the thing to watch is, if he's cleared to play in September, is he going to start going full head steam in September, or is it's probably going to be more of a ramp up, I see, just because I think Mark Pope kind of takes the cautious approach with injuries as we've seen last year. So I think we'll have a pretty good understanding probably in October of is he going to be ready at the start of the season? Is it going to be like a limited role, play 10-15 minutes until late November? We'll see. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards. I think he'll be cleared to play in September. He'll be good in practice. And then I think by late November, we'll probably be in a position where JQ can play 20, 25, 30 minutes a game.
Do you happen to know, Tristan, if at any point in the JQ commitment, I know it sounded like it moved pretty quickly. He and his dad seemed all on the Pope train very early on in the process. Did it come up at all that Pope is probably the most qualified coach in the country in terms of getting guys ramped back up to playing shape, given his experience at BYU? TJ Hawes, he had a number of guys that did really well coming back from not injury, but mission trips.
I would have to ask his dad that. I think the commitment was more so they loved Kentucky dating back to his high school. The guy listened to Pope out last year. It's just kind of like the uncertainty. John Calipari talks this. He has this plan. Like you don't have players on the roster, so I think that's kind of. But they loved it. But that would be a cool question to ask JQ and his dad, because I would say, a guy that almost graduated medical school and his experience with Mormon players and coming back and ramping up, like you said, TJ Hawes and Colin Chandler last year, that can't do anything but help. So that would be an interesting take if they thought of that.
Do you think JQ's dad alphaed Caden's dad out of Kentucky?
No. Caden's dad.
It's a whole other story.
JQ's dad has. Both are good dads. They both want what's best for their players. But in terms of I talked to Caden's dad more than JQ's dad, and Caden's dad, he's one of those guys. I remember when I talked to him in June when Caden first visited. I just set the phone down and he talked for. I think I talked for 2 minutes and he talked for 35.
That's amazing.
That's just kind of the kind of player, and he is very unfiltered. I think JQ's dad has somewhat of a filter, but I do think he's more of he's not. I think Caden's dad will say the quiet stuff out loud, especially on Twitter. JQ's dad is a little more filtered, maybe closer to Diero's dad. But Caden's dad, I was kind of looking forward to the end game tweets this season. Still am at Villanova.
Now I feel robbed of not getting the Jarrett Lewis experience and maybe getting him on the show, but
he will answer just about everything. So you could have probably gotten him, to be honest. Not even fronting.
His parents are great Instagram follows, by the way. There are some parents that I may not have kept following after a decommitment, but I don't care where he goes. They're going to be
great dynamic. A DJ, and then we know Caden's dad, Jarrett, pretty well. I do remember tweeting a picture of Caden at Big Blue Madness last year with his mom, and you can imagine the reply.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, Ben was in those replies for sure.
He was.
I know my buddy Ben.
I know Ben. He was there.
May have been on a burner somewhere.
Sono Steel says we have so many good players. It's hard to label one as the guy. I do think our team will be hard to outscore with improved rebounding and defense. Totally agree. All right. Johnny Stivers says, yeah, BG should look good in a pickup game against guys who wouldn't make your local YMCA team. That's just.
I didn't even go that negative. I mean, geez.
That's not nice.
I just thought BG had some things to work on. I didn't see he was a YMCA All-Star. That's crazy.
Eddie says, I've been saying Jasper could be for UK this year, what Pettiford what for Auburn last year. Sixth man who comes in is expected to do nothing more than cook. That'd be awesome.
Just the way it is. What I love about Jasper is just like how creative he is with the ball. Like I'm not gonna compare him to Rob Dillingham, but he has the shiftiness. And he's probably, in terms of the most creative scorer, probably the most creative on it.
Yeah, sometimes that creativity worries me. I know there was a highlight
Those are the
at some
Caleb
point
Love.
last year.
My Caleb Love bone.
There was one where he like jumped up and did a 360 and then shot and then made a three from the corner, and it's like,
No
yeah,
skip.
but I don't know that you needed to do that, and I don't know that it helped. It's not like it got you more open. Degree of difficulty way up. It was
Did it
impressive.
go in?
It made it on
Yeah,
Twitter.
yeah. I mean, it went in. It was on a highlight reel, but like, I don't need you to take that shot. Maybe a normal
Yeah.
one.
All's well that ends well, brother.
Tristan, how do you feel about the mid-range jumper?
Oh, Lord, please.
I love it in very, very small portions.
There we go. Okay.
I'm
Still
not.
loves it a little bit.
I do remember. I asked Cal that this was one of the last home games of the year before he left. I can't remember what game it was, but it was one they shot 47% mid range, and I was the one that asked, like, "Why are you taking?" And he's like, "That's the shot we want." And I was like, at that point, I was like, I'm talking to him. That was probably the most aggressive Cal was with me in a post game interview. But I love the. I just when I obviously I'm young, I'm 27, but when I grew up, like you had Tracy McGrady shooting Chauncey Billups, like guys that took advantage of the mid range jumper. So I think I just have like a soft spot for it, especially like right there at the top of the free throw line or right there on the edge, coming off screens. But I do think like in small amounts, it's a great way to score.
I think Ben's DMing me saying he wants me to kick you off the show.
You hate the mid range jump shot that much?
He does, and I'll tell you why. Because he doesn't know ball right now. Listen,
Okay.
Go ahead, Ben. I'm just kidding.
I do hate the step on the line. That's not a mid range jump shot. That's just a stupid shot. Now, a true mid range jump shot.
I was just very critical of some guys taking long twos, and I was consistent. I was angry. I was angry. I yelled at my TV whether it went in or didn't. Of course, I liked it better when it went in, and I was more critical of some players than others. Jackson hit it at a higher rate, so I was a little less mad when he did it.
You're still
but
mad about
man, I still said why. You know,
purposeful basketball.
Somebody
Ben,
open,
all threes and twos.
You got somebody
open
efficiency,
brother.
Early in the shot clock, crazy.
I do hate the Otego away mid-range jump shot. That is probably my least favorite because I either drive it or shoot. As
his mid-range is like foot on a line half the time is why.
And it's like I don't know whether if I could. And it's like very hesitant. Like I don't know whether if I could shoot this or not. So he doesn't even have full confidence in his ability to shoot it. My favorite long two mid-range jump shot would always be Keon Brooks. It just always felt him and Jacob Toppin just move 4 inches back and we're good, or take 1 step forward and we're fine. Like just make it easier or make it harder.
I think I invented new curse words watching Keon Brooks shoot the mid-range jumper.
I'll say though, looking forward a little bit, watching OTE, Tay Kenny is great. I don't know that I've ever seen someone get to their spot with such consistency and just knock them down. Unfortunately for me, his spot is the free throw line, so it's a lot of mid-range jumpers. But I don't think I've seen him miss that shot either. So you know, I may yell at my TV, but if it goes in, I can live with it.
Rob Dillingham shot a lot of the mid-range jumpers in high school too, so maybe he takes the next step and extends a little bit.
Yeah, just a couple steps back. It's fine.
All right, we're making our way through this chat. Johnny Stivers again. I watched about 14 pick games, and Lowe's going to make this team so good. He does everything. Will shoot better than his percentage. I can see what he. If you can't see what he brings you, I can't help you.
That's my burner account, but yeah, I agree.
And I think the stat, like Jalen Lowe was obviously Cam Williams was a priority, but Jalen Lowe was somebody that before he even publicly signed, they were like pitching to other recruits. So the
Oh.
staff is really high on them, and if I trust the staff, especially after seeing how they evaluated the team last year. I mean, you bring a guy from Fairleigh Dickinson who probably wins you the Mississippi State game. You have my full trust. So until they show me otherwise, I think Jalen Lowe will be have a big jump and be a great addition.
Well, guys, the
appreciate-
other. Sorry, go ahead, bud. I was
I was
about
gonna
to.
say just on low. I appreciate how happy he looks in every picture he takes. I mean, I know all these guys are happy to be here. Some of them me
Tyrese
mug
Maxey.
just constantly, but he and Lamont Butler was the same way. Lamont always smiling, and Jalen Lowe is that for us this year.
Other big news story of the day: Kentucky-Louisville, was it November 11th this year?
Why are people so upset about
Veterans
this?
Day.
Some soft behavior by a big Blue Nation. I don't understand
it's
what
just-
the
it's just a
trepidation
month.
is.
It's just I mean, I'm not any more or less comfortable with winning that game. I just
I'm
don't
not
think it
saying
belongs.
you.
I just don't think it belongs then. But I am angry about it. I want it to be I know we're super tight in December. We've got Gonzaga, Indiana, St. John's, Bellarmine. Somewhere we need to fit in our MTE and the SEC ACC challenge. But like, I just don't want that game to be before the football game.
I hate it.
It's very weird. Just because we usually always get the better end of the thing on the basketball, so I'd rather that be the second half of the football game. Don't see that one going any better again this year. But we'll see. I'm kind of like I see the rationale of it. Both teams have obligations, but I mean I don't think any of us four are any less to either attend it or watch it. And if there's a game that it's kind of flexible in terms of like, okay, what's going to affect it the least? It's probably that game.
That's
I'd
true.
rather they push it further into the season than
Be like
earlier.
how you had the Gonzaga game or the Big 12 SEC tournament. That would be awesome. But I don't know if Louisville ever goes for it.
The one thing I'll say, benefit of having it earlier, although maybe not this year since we're kind of coming into the season with an injury, is I felt all year long like we got robbed of the Keyshawn
Kirk
Pryor, Kirk Prisa experience because both were injured. And we had a fight even without either of them playing. So earlier is better, I guess, in that you are, JQ aside, less likely to have players who've been injured so far that season, knock on wood. But yeah, although it just feels wrong to be so early to me.
One complaint of last year is not getting the full Kirk Prisa experience. My only complaint, just he's my favorite. Like in terms of like interviews, him and Big Z are my favorite, even though we only had him for a few months.
Used to call Kerr the vibes coordinator
Absolutely.
on the team.
He had a lot of vibes off the court too. So
I forget what game it was, but one of my favorite Kirk Prisa moments of the season was he'd been trying to take a charge all season long, and it may have been Gonzaga, where he took a charge and he's sitting there on the floor and just losing his mind, so happy that he finally got the call.
At that moment, because I was sitting baseline shooting photo for that game, I had the person next to me. I think she was local. She's like, "Is he always that crazy?" And I was like, "Yes."
Hell yeah.
Joe Burrow and
I'll
Ellie
be-
De La Cruz are shaking in their boots because they're not the big man in town no more. Now that Kerr's in Cincinnati.
That's true. I'll
We
be
need Kerr
watching
shirtless
this
at a
year.
Bengals game.
Let's go.
It's happening.
All right, guys. Ben, any updates on the hearings, anything like that?
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been pretty
Yes.
slow.
So I don't know if anything has happened since we started, but Ross Dellinger with Yahoo reported earlier that the parties had filed and met the deadline for submitting the revised settlement terms. They're kind of playing with fire, and that the judge told them, I guess, a week ago now, come back with the walk-ons and individuals who may be losing their roster spots grandfathered, or else essentially I'm not going to accept the settlement. And it sounds like, per what Ross is reporting, they did that, but it's voluntary for the schools to grandfather them in. They can choose which of the players they're grandfathering in, which conceivably then you have players who aren't going to get grandfathered in, and that isn't what she said to do to fix it. So it'll be interesting to see sort of how she responds. I think at this point it's just on her time. Whenever she's ready to issue a ruling, she can. But I saw Ross also reported that in the event that she rejects this, a lot of states have already passed legislation that's going to allow them to pay players anyway under the state law. And they said, what's the NCAA going to do about it? The ADs are like, okay, you've lost your teeth. You can't, So we'll see. That's definitely something I'll keep watching these next couple of days, see if she has anything to say there. I think maybe they should have gone with this strategy first when she said fix it. And instead they came back with, here's 10 reasons we don't need to fix it. And she said, no, really fix it, or else I'm going to reject it. So I'm kind of worried about them not having just done what she said, but we'll see.
All right. Well, before we head out of here, Tristan, did you have anything that you wanted to plug? Would you? I can add the invite link for the Discord to the description.
Yeah, that would be cool. You can check me out on social media. It's going to be very slow burn summer. It looks like all the news are out of the way. The roster is almost complete. Nobody wants to talk about football, understandably.
I do.
So, let's kind of just mull over and overanalyze practice clips over the next 3 months and see what this team can do in October.
Yeah,
November.
we'll have to have you on closer to football season. We'll commiserate together.
For sure.
We'll have nobody watching.
I don't think the misery will come close to November and sitting in that cold right beside Mitch Barnhart, watching them lose by 30 to Louisville. Might come close.
Brutal.
He's motivated. We're ready. 8-4 incoming. Let's go.
Real quick before we jump off, if you need desperately basketball content, we've got the G League Elite Camp, May 9th to 11th, that now is up to Andrew Carr, Lamont Butler, both got invites, as well as Jalen Lowe and Amari. And then following that, 11th to the 18th, we've got the NBA Combine, so we can check out Kobe Brea and Otega Owe.
Very cool. All right, guys, any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, just thanks to Tristan for joining us. We really appreciate you, being our guest, and glad to have you, and really appreciate it.
It's cool to have
huge thanks.
be part.
Huge thanks to Tristan, and thanks to everyone who's been doing the super chats, and we really appreciate that. Like Jared said earlier, we appreciate the likes and subscribes and views, and just really love that you guys come hang out with us for a little bit.
For real.
Love the unique background to every show that you guys do. Appreciate you having me on. Great intro. Love the phallic tongue T-shirt, Jared. Funny story. Have you guys? Do you know 19.9, like the shorts, the company that makes like the denim shorts? They had like a practice short a few years ago, and I bought it, and it was advertised with the phallic tongue, and that was the only reason I bought it. And it came, and it didn't have the phallic tongue. And I had to write an email. And I was like, can you please refund me, or can I reissue these because they don't have the phallic tongue? That's probably my best email. And they were like, just keep them. We'll give you a refund.
That's amazing.
I mean, that's an all right outcome. That isn't the ideal outcome. The ideal outcome is getting the right shorts.
Yeah, I was like, give me a new logo. But no, that's my favorite phallic tongue logo story.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. For Tristan, for Ben, for Braden, I'm Jared. Go Cats.
Cats.
Go Cats.
You guys.